from glitching. One thing we're trying to avoid. I want to welcome everybody back, and this is our weekly kind of like a open forum talk about the state of the progressive politics. I look forward today. We have some great topics. We're going to talk about the
The
elephant in the
Trump
room,
situation.
the Trump situation. The we're going to also talk about DeSantis and his crazy, crazy proposals that he has right now in the Florida State Legislature. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, and and we're going to try to just make it go organically like we always do. We have a special guest, Zach, tonight with us, who's going to give you his definite perspective on progressive issues. I've never been good about classification of, but Zach,
Semantics.
yeah,
Progressive is good. Yeah.
progressive. I put it all under the same umbrella because I think we all have the same objective, which is to move the country forward. But I understand there's little nuances that separates us, and Seth does a very good job at explaining those differences. And so I look forward to hear what he has to say, and Seth, and I guess I'm just start off with something basic, something that just how come Trump didn't get arrested today? How is that even possible? I
Because
thought
Trump is the only person that thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, he was like, he gave me up the weekend. He's like, yo, I'm about to get arrested. I'm like, yo, our president's about to get arrested, yo.
Homeboy is
Like,
paranoid.
yeah, he was like, man, I'm about to get arrested. I was like, man.
Well, they're saying an indictment, and maybe I don't think it's going to be a perp walk kind of arrest, but he's probably going to get subpoenaed or something like that by the end of the week. But
yeah,
nobody else had any reason why he had this specific date in mind. That was kind of straight from Trump's mind. But I was expecting a lot of like Proud Boy action tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he called for what? Raise havoc, save this country. Like that was like a second incitement.
I think it was like, save me. It was like, low key, save me. I'm about to get arrested.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care who does it.
Yeah, man, that's all political show. I mean, do you hear DeSantis respond? We're like, DeSantis, would you help stop the federal government from arresting Trump? And DeSantis is like, if I say yes, I'm going to help his presidency chances. If I say no, I look like I'm not a Trump supporter. You can literally see his brain trying to analyze it. And then eventually he's just like, yeah, I don't play political games. It's like,
yeah, that was his only like right wing critique. He's like, clearly this is political, but like I don't have anything to say about the hush money to the porn star. And, I don't know anything about a porn star or how he paid hush money to her or any of that hush money business to the porn star. He just kept bringing that up just so people remembered exactly in the back of their mind.
Yeah, his marital affairs. It's just like, dude, he got elected, and everyone already knew this, right? But I guess he's gonna try to beat the conservatives over the head, like I'm the good guy. I'm gonna carry our message. It's like the French are coming.
Yeah, he's basically just like sounding nicer, but saying the exact same thing. Like, let's look at the worst aspects of Trump, the things that really upset everybody, and just do it in a way that's not upsetting, which is like, I don't know. It's a more tolerable version of Trump that's really more dangerous because it could convince more people, but I don't know. He's kind of losing steam right now, but we'll see when the primaries actually kick off. He's not seeming to react well to criticism from Trump.
Yeah, I think if anything, this whole situation has kind of just like reinforced the idea that like this Republican Party is Trump's Republican Party, because like all these Republican like legislators and stuff are just coming out to defend, this whole situation like on behalf of Trump. Even like the conservative like media conglomerate like Fox News, they're all having his back, and like DeSantis is scared to even like say anything about it because it could hurt his potential campaigns in the future. So this is. Trump has a stranglehold on the Republican Party, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, he's going to try to do the whole Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Win a piece to the end.
I think the main lesson that he's learning is like just say less, and you'll do better. Like talking just only lets you destroy yourself, and Trump just puts his foot in his mouth, stuff like that. He's like, I'm just an alternative, and I'm just going to agree with him, just not say anything controversial. And it's like, that's kind of like been the liberal strategy for the last 20, 50 years. I don't know.
It doesn't really work. Biden's the only strategy I've ever seen work against Trump. Like, you got to go toe for toe with them, and that's how you gotta marry your issues and your agenda, and then swing back. Like, no, you're.
Do you mean like rhetoric or like his actual follow through? Because
Biden is more of he's a very traditional. I would say his debate style is very traditional. It's like, you say this point, I have a counterpoint. You say this point, I have a counterpoint, and that's a traditional debate. Most of the debates nowadays are more about talking points than not really debates. They're just more marketing.
I know what you mean.
For their actual campaign. Just like the whole Kamala Harris. It was like, I was that girl on that bus, and then 1 hour later, she tweeted bus pictures, and she had T-shirts made within that next hour. It was like a setup marketing. So a lot of campaigns are like that nowadays.
I think Biden being not very polished goes in his favor.
It does.
Everything else is he's very establishment, but he doesn't come off as polished. He just, because of his mistakes, are endearing to regular people. So like that goes in his favor. When you have the exact same politics in Kamala Harris, and you can like see where all of her lines are written and scripted. She's a performer, so nobody can trust her because they don't feel like she's speaking from the heart. Feels like a bunch of staff writers are writing that. So that's kind of the difference there. When really Biden's not that much better. He's just genuine and authentic. He might be wrong about a bunch of shit, but he doesn't realize it. That's the thing.
I think he's a pretty decent debater. I think that Trump is a really good debater. I didn't know that about him prior to him running. I thought he was just more of a But like I said, most debates now are marketing debates. They're not really debating.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is I don't think Trump is a good debater in the sense he can win an argument as much as he's just. Well, no, he knows how to win an argument. He doesn't know how to win a debate. So he just comes off rhetorically like he's like always in the right. He never concedes anything for the to move forward in an argument. It just sounds like if you just deny that anything they say has any validity, then a certain subset is going to believe that you were right the whole time. Which
it's marketing. It's just like that's why he does all the labels. He'll label someone, and it will continue that same label. And then I can tell you every single label he labeled someone in the Republican Party. I know Lil Ham Marco. I know Lying Ted. He's a great labeler. That's what he does. And that's what makes him good at debates, because he knows how to label people. But it's more marketing than it is actual rhetoric in terms of ideology, because he doesn't have an ideology. His ideology is based strictly on what's best for he treats America like a business. What's the business way of running America? And that's his ideology. He's not a conservative. He's not a liberal. He's not a progressive. He's a business person. He makes decisions based on business. And 9 times out of 10, that's what makes him such a bad president. It's because politics is not about there's an aspect of it is business, but majority of it is human. It's understanding the human. I guess having
the human side to politics.
No,
the
understanding
consequences.
Yeah, understanding people's emotions, and that's what Biden has the leverage on Trump. He understands how to channel an emotion. He understands the voice of American people. And
you think that's what Biden has better than Trump?
Yeah,
I don't agree with that. I feel like it's a certain subset of people, maybe like people that live in the city and have a certain amount of money, but I feel like most Americans are actually more agreed with like Trump's rhetoric, which is Trump's rhetoric is there's this establishment. They live in a bubble. They're rich. They're a lot wealthier than us, and they have all these ideas that we have to suffer the consequences of. They have these free trade policies, and they resulted with a loss of jobs. They're out of touch, this and that. I think a lot of Americans agree with most of that sentiment from different angles. We think the elite is a bunch of rich shareholders, and they're not liberals. I mean, or at least Democrat voters. They're preserving their economic interests through the Republican Party and corporate interests, stuff like that. Well, the Republicans think it's the elite, but they're a bunch of liberal coastal elitists, and they're I don't know how far right we're going, but they think they're like selling babies and using the adrenochrome to preserve their skin and whatever random shit. But everybody agrees on the same policy, not same policy, the same general view that there's a politics that's not working for any of us, and it's kind of like we don't really have any say in what actually happens. We don't have a real democracy.
Yeah,
I'm trying to move us towards in this discussion towards talking about specifically what we were talking about with semantics, because the difference here is Zach's a libertarian socialist, and I don't know if Jesse knows what that is exactly. So I'd like to hear Zach explain his side of this conundrum.
Well, right. I just wanted to comment on what you guys said just a second ago.
For it.
Like that's because this whole Trump republicanism, like the MAGA movement it's fake populism. It pulls on those strings of working class people, but it never really applies real actual solutions to help working class people. It just kind of like just picks off on like racial sentiment and just runs with it. So it's not really real populism that's actually going to benefit working people. I don't know. Just describe what libertarian socialism is. I mean, it's very it's a very broad meaning that encompasses a lot of different ideologies. It can go anywhere from like anarchism to like even radical social democrats. I would consider libertarian socialists. It just depends on how you want to fit through that. It's just as long as you believe in like power coming from the bottom up rather than top down, or like a very horizontally structured society. And you believe that workers should in some way, whether it be through unions or co-ops or like running the businesses themselves, like owning the means of production, then you're a libertarian socialist, in my opinion. I don't know if that really means anything.
But... No, it means a lot. I mean, I think for us, it's identifying what we stand for as progressive is, to me, is the most important thing I think that we are losing races because we're not identifying enough to the average American. I think as progressives, we have a great ideology, but we miss on messaging. And we fall into the traps of labelism like Trump does to us and a lot of the Republican Party. So understanding, our differences in terms of the progressive movement gives us a better understanding of how we market ourselves to the average voter, because I think that's what's really hurting progressives. And I can only speak for my race and races that I knew close to mine, where it was you were going against a grain because it's been an established narrative that progressives don't like prosperity. It's more of we get labeled as progressives they just want everything for free, and reality is that's farther from the truth. What we want, for me, and I believe that most progressives want, is the opportunity to move up, and not listen to all these lies that any opportunity to give someone an upper hand is socialism, because it's a lie. And it's just, and like if that was the case, and when Lyndon B. Johnson passed most of the social acts that we have now, that would have created socialism, but it's not. And most people in America depend on that. We depend on Social Security. We depend on the pre-K education. These are the things that we depend on as society, and we can't even imagine what would it be like if it wasn't here, but that was progressive, and we need to get back to that message. Like, hey, we've done this before. We've passed progressive things, and your lives have been better for it. And the Republicans has passed zero. Republicans have been in power for, I want to say, a total after Clinton, and I just aged myself, sorry, but after Clinton, I want to say that they've been in power for at least 12 years. And if you count before Clinton, they've been in power for at least 16 years. And in 16 years, and let's even include Ronald Reagan years, they've been in power for 24 years in the last 3 decades. And when you look at their policies, not one of them has ever helped the middle class. And that's a problem. you know. And for us, I think that what we're trying to establish as progressive is stop falling for the labeling, because the labeling is what's creating people to go out to vote for Republicans. DeSantis is doing it right now. He's talking about every single issue in the sun that doesn't even affect the average American, but he's just trying to find a way to label things.
Right.
You
I
know,
think
and
there's an interesting point on where both progressive. Actually don't know if progressive is that much more a better term among more conservative minded people than a socialist would. I feel like they're essentially the same. But I feel like
Yeah, one of the
running
same.
away from words like this that are more, if we're more talking about a socialist economy with a progressivism than a purely capitalist economy. And I feel like running against it kind of gives all the defining of these terms to the people that are trying to destroy these words, like the conservatives. So I feel like
mhm,
if we never talk about the word socialism to conservatives, it's just Venezuela, Cuba, anything that's ever gone bad. So then we could never use this word in a positive context. And I don't think that really makes sense. Progressivism is kind of in between both ideas. It's a mixed market. I think progressivism is just a American way of saying social democracy, which is something we've vaguely touched on the
mhm,
last few weeks, but like we haven't fully defined. A social democratic economy is one that's built on equal opportunity, essentially, and it's not built purely off of capitalism or socialism. It's basically like we're going to use both of them the best we can to create a people's economy, and it's going to use the funding that comes from capitalism. We're going to use private enterprise stuff like that, but not a purely rugged capitalist hands-off economy where everything runs awry because the owners control everything and decide everything. Because we know what a free market capitalist economy would look like. It would be completely chaotic for 90% of all Americans. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It would not work. So it's kind of like we're going to do the best way we could do possibly of capitalism. And that's kind of all the policies Bernie was kind of pushing for in 2016. He was never talking about transitioning to a socialist economy. He was talking
yeah,
about how do we mitigate the problems of capitalism, such as free college, something like they do in European countries, public health care, stuff like that, and labor rights. So it's more like just progressive ideas in general, social democracy. It's kind of the best that we've seen in the entire world. It's the Nordic model. Stuff in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, all the countries with the highest quality of life on the planet. They all have social democratic economies. And
mhm,
it's like, yeah, that's capitalism technically. So all social democratic countries, you could say, oh, they're still capitalist countries where there's no socialist economies that have worked in the country. But it's like anytime you see implementing a socialist policy, you see prosperity, stuff like that. When you
mhm,
consider a deregulatory or privatization policy would be considered a capitalist policy, even if it's under a socialist economy. So
yeah,
it's like, yeah, you can say we haven't had a purely socialist economy that's worked perfectly and given us the utopian dream everybody talks about, but pretty much the closest we've gotten to a socialist economy is the best economy. So there's a logical conclusion that like, okay, if you give people power, it's gonna distribute through society better. Everybody's gonna be better off. But there's always the risk of spoiling everything for what could have been what's basically perfect to something that's slightly better. It's always concern in the back of my mind. Like, is it worth pushing for the perfect society built on or perfect way to organize an economy and to benefit society, or like do we get people the most amount of money in their pockets right now? So I'll turn that over to Zach to say why he thinks libertarian socialism would be better than social democracy, which is something I think about every single day.
Yeah, I really that debate runs through my head every single day.
Yeah,
I at the end of the day, it's just because social democracy still has capitalism, but that's just that's a battle for like way down the line. We aren't even at social democracy yet. I want to get there first. You know what I mean?
yeah, we're not even close to social democracy at this point.
Exactly. And that's kind of like my whole issue with Biden is he's so like scared of these labels, like
yeah,
him and the moderate wing of the Democratic Party that he represents are just so scared of like the Democrats being called socialists that they don't really try hard enough to push forward solutions like Medicare for all, like free college, like a UBI, or like passing the PRO Act, things like that they could have done when they had control of the House, Senate, and the White House. And so yeah, but they're going to be called socialists anyways, right? Like,
no
matter what Biden does, or like what the Democrats try to do, no matter what, they're going to be called socialists. So you might as well like actually do things that'll benefit ordinary working people, because like you're saying earlier, Jesse, I think we have a hard time like reaching ordinary people. It's because ordinary people are just so like lost on politics.
Exactly.
Like there's a really interesting question, like why have all these like Rust Belt coal miners started voting Republican? It's because Democrats have left a void by not supporting unions enough, by not actively helping the lives of ordinary working people, that the Republicans have been able to utilize identity politics to grab at their heartstrings and just pull them over. It's just and it's a vicious. It's going to keep repeating itself until Democrats actually like really put forth actual progressive solutions, which I don't think they're going to be able to do anytime soon. And I think this Republican and conservative propaganda machine has already got a grip on that group of people right now. So it's very doomerish to say, but that's just the truth.
I mean, I agree with you guys. I think that moving away from the word socialism is doesn't mean anything if your actions don't reflect what you're saying. I think Biden is very, he's a moderate. I'm not going to say he's a progressive. He's a moderate who does
Most
progressive
president we've had. Even
He
I
does
would
Since
even say,
FDR?
yeah, I would
does,
say even more than LBJ. LBJ just had a super majority, so
yeah. What I'm saying, it's like he does progressive things, but he's really a moderate. If you look at his record, long term, he's he's doing progressive things because he has a base he has to worry about. But for me, we are at, everyone talk a little bit with what Zach was saying about the identity politics. This is the battlefield that we're in. We are in that. That's what we are. We've labeled Republicans labeled us, and the way that with all this money and politics now, it's all becoming a big marketing machine. People don't really know who the people they're voting for.
Yeah.
They just, they see a name, you say a couple keywords, and they vote for you. And that's what you were saying, Zach, about being, uninformed electorate. And I want to talk about some of this uninformed electorate by giving an example, because here in the state of Florida, surprisingly, we're trying to pass a law called HB 1617 that literally makes it unlawful to be driving a car with an immigrant, illegal immigrant. That's what kind of law we're trying to pass. What in the world? What in the world this law is going to do to help the average person in Florida? Absolutely nothing. It's like it's identity politics. That's all it is. It's like, if you're driving a illegal immigrant, and mind you, the most immigrant state with, the Haitian, the Cuban, the Puerto Rican, and the vast majority of people in Florida are immigrants. If you drive with someone that's illegal, you get arrested under HB 1617. Isn't that crazy?
yeah, that's kind of wild. They also are trying to criminalize women. No, they're floating like, should we give the death penalty to women that get an abortion, and like still calling Democrats the party of big government.
Yeah, and then they have another bill that talks about 6-week ban. They're trying to get passed. It's like 6 weeks. Most people don't even know they're pregnant by then.
Yeah, that's the whole point in their eyes,
Yeah,
laws actually like banning cross-dressing and drag just in general. Yeah.
Yes, they have laws like that, and it's like, we just named like 5 or 6 laws that has nothing that ever going to do to help the average person in Florida.
Yeah, that's clearly like just political showmanship.
Exactly.
And like counter-cultural politics just to like avoid the issue that they don't have any policy positions that are other than lower taxes, do the opposite of what Democrats are doing, not change anything fundamentally at all, unless it's something we've already done. Then we need to go back.
Yeah, and
It's like we have no ability to imagine any sort of society that's different, even though this one had to be completely manufactured to get to this point in general.
And they've controlled the House since January, and what have they done since then? I mean, they've just passed messaging bills. Like, it's all just like political theater. It's nothing to help working people. Like, Republicans are not going to give like actual policy that will help people. They're just going to like message so that they can keep power. Which, I mean, to be fair, Democrats do the same thing.
So. Yeah,
Democrats do the same thing. Both parties do it. But what I'm saying is that the Republicans, they do it in a way where it's like they do it in a way that's so offensive to me as a Democrat. I can't even tell you. It's like you and I apologize to anyone here that's on my Twitter who's underage. I hope no one's on Twitter's underage, but they do like they say all these things about Democrats, and that they literally are shitting on the average American person, and it's like you talk about, oh well, we're helping American people by telling them that if you tend to be gay, you're not a good human being. How is that helping the average American person that can't even afford a loaf of bread for their child at home? Do you think
it's the definition of like just campaigning to stay in power? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to scare you, and like these people are going to change things, and I just don't want to change. So you should elect me to not change. You know what I mean? They're not proposing anything. They're like, I'm just not different, and that's the best thing to offer.
Yeah, I want to keep everything the same. If we kept everything the same, guess what? I will still be in chains. Seth will still be in Europe and like Ukraine right now, and I don't know where you're from, Zach, but
I think I would be okay, but I might get hate crimes for not being straight. So
yeah, he lives in Mississippi, so
yeah,
he would be thriving. He would be thriving right now.
So these are the things that if we didn't change, we wouldn't be where we are in this atmosphere as America. We would literally be stuck in a time where there was white dominance, not even smart white dominance, it was just white dominance.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were dominant because they were intelligent. It was like because they're dominant because they're white,
and they have money
and had money and property, and it's like, I think that we've become a better society through change. Like every generation gets better because we become more diverse. We become more understanding. We understand each other better. My parents, they were born in an island culture of Haiti. And the things that I hear them say, because I was born here in America, I was like, you can't say that. Like, that's not right. That's not normal. And I'm constantly checking them because I grew up in a different world, in a different culture, in a different society. And my brothers who are 18 years old, they do that to me all the time. Like, I say stuff that I used to say in high school, and they're like, that's not politically correct anymore.
Yeah.
So that diversity and understanding of each other, it keeps evolving. And when we have politics that talks about, hey, let's just go back to the way it was, that didn't work. It didn't. Our economies were terrible. Now we have one of the best economies in the world because we're diverse. We bring different things to the table, every culture. And I think that the Republicans Party is just, I get so passionate about it because I know what they're doing. And the reality is, if you read every book since the invention of man, the best way to conquer a society is divide a society. That's just the best way they do it. And that's just what they're doing. They know, like, hey, technically we don't have policies that actually help people. But if we divide and we show a difference, we keep power. And that's all they do. And it's like, well, you're dividing, you're showing a difference, but to one end, to the detriment of the country, because you have now organizations like the Proud Boys popping up, and there's extreme organizations in the African American culture too that are popping up too. And there's extreme organizations in every culture that's popping up because guess what? Now we're becoming a society divided, and everyone wants to hold to their positions, but they don't understand our society was great by the inclusiveness and coming together as a culture, not the separation of the cultures. That's what makes America number one throughout the whole entire world, because we're the only society that integrates different cultures, And so for me, I see what the Republicans are doing. It makes me mad, but I'm gonna get off my soapbox about this. So I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna move on and talk about something that I think that we all are thinking about.
About to read some more minds.
Yes, I
What are
think
we
we're
thinking
all.
right now, Jesse?
I'm thinking we're all thinking about like, man, what is the presidential election gonna look like with Biden on the ticket?
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see if he's going to be on the ticket. I'm just hoping and dreaming he doesn't do it.
Okay. So
But
I think we all know he's running. Come on,
I
he's running.
know, and I know that he thinks that he's the best chance for America for some reason.
yeah,
Like, I don't know.
if
It's
you
like,
had
I
your,
did it once. Why would anybody care that I'm 4 years older?
if you had your dream team of people that can actually, let's just stick it. Let's keep it to three: president, vice president, secretary of state. Those are usually the three most powerful people. If you had your dream team, who would the three be?
Seth Kafilla, Zach Britt. No, I'm just kidding. Among elected officials, or at least,
Should we limit the scope? I think we should limit the scope.
the what?
We should limit the pool of people.
Oh yeah, of
So,
course. That's yeah. Among probably like actual politically active politicians.
okay,
Yes.
cool. Politically active. All right,
I got one for you.
got
Mi-
it. Go ahead.
Marianne Williamson, Bernie Sanders, AOC.
I thought you were going to say Mitt Romney at first.
Oh no,
And I was going to listen.
fuck no, jeez.
Okay,
I like that. I feel like every day I'm like really wanting Marianne Williamson to do well, but like I don't know. Part of me really thinks that if people actually listen to her, they'll be like, she's not a kooky orb woman.
Exactly.
You know what?
Have you seen her TikTok?
No,
I don't have TikTok.
Oh, it's so good. The clips
I've
they
seen
have of her talking about unions and stuff. It's good. It's good stuff.
I
So at
looked.
least go ahead.
What's funny is I looked. I was on watching some show and she was on it, and I remember Seth told me like 2 weeks ago, actually live here on the podcast, like, oh yeah, don't sleep on her. She's really good. I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then so I listened to her speak, and I was like, she's actually really good. It's like in terms of the tone and understanding of the issues, I was like, she might not be bad as an alternative,
right,
to Biden. So,
and I feel like all the radical stuff is more like in the minds of everyone else. Like I never ever hear her saying the stuff like we need to have a socialist economy or anything like that. She's talking about FDR, and she's talking about the policies implemented, like basically just democratic policies, like doing our best.
What Democrats were like 10 years ago, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to hurt her though is like we're going to have a situation similar to like 2016 in that primary, just like times 10 because we have an incumbent, right? Like we have like Biden running as an incumbent.
People
president.
actually like him.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think she has a chance to do decent, but at the end of the day, Biden's going to run and going to thump her. It's just the way
it's hard to. He's an incumbent. Yeah,
I feel like Biden as is, there's no way she could. Now, again, anything could happen to really mess up our confidence in Biden, especially among the Democrats. Like he's got a lot of time to fuck up, and he's starting to give in to the establishment ways. He's starting to be tougher on immigration. He keeps striking on these. He's not really that pro-labor union of a president.
Yeah, think of the rail strikes. Like
that was nobody talked about that.
Yeah, that was so quiet in the news. No one talked about it. Like brushing the rug there.
But it was a major concession, I would say, to the right, but I feel like they didn't even care. I feel like they're not even like, I feel like there's just like nobody really supporting that. He's just like, back to the trains, boys.
Because that's like the basic liberal position is to be against the rail strike. So of course conservatives aren't going to, give him credit for it. Like,
yeah, that's the problem with being a moderate is like, it's never really going to help you. You just have to have the appearance of not being a radical. There's no policies that really, I mean, I won't say no policies, but most progressive policies are not radical in practice at all, especially when you see the results of them in the other developed countries where they're actually implemented.
No, I think that, the problem with moderates is just that you don't know where they stand. That's it. It's just like, bro, I don't know if it's like this, like you have a friend, right? You're hanging out with your friend. If you know something goes down, that friend better be there. You know, you don't want the friend to be like running out with you, running out with everyone else, and just leaves you there. You know, and so like that's what I see in a moderate. It's something like, are you with me or are you not? You know, it's like, because you're telling me you're for this and you're that, but then you wish wash, and people don't like that. I mean, I know I don't like that. It's like I stand where I sit. You know, I had a professor said that to me one time. He was a poli sci professor. And he was like, whatever you say, whatever you stand on, sit on it. You know, for good or for bad. You know, because I mean, Bernie Sanders, you can say whatever you want to say about Bernie. Bernie still what his position was, and he sat on his position. It was so unpopular for 20, 40 years, and then boom, it became popular. But he never wavered. He always stuck to what he believed. And I think that's what people respect about Bernie. And that's what people don't like about moderates. Is moderates, they never
They don't have a vision.
They don't have no vision. They just know that I need to get elected. And I can't go this far right. I can't go this far left. So I'm going to say whatever is good for the crowd I'm talking to. And sometimes you got to be okay with being booed. And people are not okay with that. You know, people are a little more sensitive. They don't okay. They want to be liked. They want to be pleased. And it's like, no, bro. If you're a leader, it's okay to get booed, as long as you stand for what you believe. You know, and I've always been like that. It's like I would never be the most popular guy, because at the end of the day, I'm gonna say what I feel. You know, and it's not the most popular thing, but it is what I feel. You know.
But when you do stick to your guns, you will have a subset of the population that will respect that. And that's the only reason that Trump really works with Republicans, is he says how he feels. He doesn't tell the truth. He just says how he feels. And they feel a lot of the same ways. They don't care that it's the truth. They just care that he feels the same way. So he feels like he's a real representative of them. When Democrats do this, they're like, let's throw as broad of a net as possible, because they are a centrist party and they rely entirely on the center to get elected. A majority of Americans are just liberals. I'm not even saying like Democrats. They're just the policy of liberalism. America is a liberal country. It's not a conservative country. The conservatives are conservative because they want to protect classical liberalism. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We have a policy or an economy of all liberals. You know, it's if you go to China, they have a very different view of the world. They don't care about. I'm not going to say they don't care about freedom of speech, but like these are the ideas of liberalism. The people might care about that. I'm talking about the ideas established in the schools in America. It's free speech. I mean, I'm not saying they talk about trade, but free trade, freedom of religion. All these ideas are directly associated with liberalism, and that doesn't really. It's supposed to be inclusive. You know what I mean? That's the most inclusive ideology. It's like we don't really care who you are. It's basically like just soft libertarianism. You know what I mean? It's like with the state, it's state established libertarianism. That's what it is. You can do whatever you want. We don't really care. You can be whoever you want. But like Republicans want to be who they want, but they don't want other people to be who they want. So it's kind of a contradiction. Everybody has their own positions on that.
It's totally against the Constitution of the United States. It's like anytime you ever hear, and I'm going to be a lawyer geek for a second and talk about some law stuff. Anytime you hear people start to take away people's individual rights, you just pull the United States Constitution, and I'm going to pull it up. And it's like, I think it is the 10th Amendment. Let me pull it up.
I like your shirt, Zach.
Thank you. I had to put it on for a show like this.
Mine says lean into socialism.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned booing, Jesse. I really think we should go back to booing moderates like we did Pete Buttigieg in 2020. That's what I miss about primaries is yelling Wall Street Pete at people who support Wall Street.
I know he seemed so promising for like the 10 minutes that he was appealing to progressives. We're like, Medicare for all? Okay. He's a small town guy, small town mayor. And he's like, no, the opposite of what I said as soon as everybody dropped off from that.
He raised so much.
he announced his campaign. It was like Medicare for all, and then he was like Medicare for all who want it. You know.
At one point, like Kirsten Gillibrand, let's see, Kamala Harris. These are all like co-sponsors of Medicare for all, stuff like that. Like in theory, and then when they actually talk about it, they're like, oh, I wouldn't get rid of private industry, stuff like that.
Yeah,
like no, actually, private healthcare is important. Yeah,
I was talking to my Fox News grandpa, and he was describing Kamala Harris like she was like a progressive socialist, and I was like, she's a moderate Democrat. What are you talking about?
I don't think she's either. Honestly, I don't think she even has like she's just left. She's a Democrat. That's her only real ideology is whatever the Democratic Party says. Like legitimately, a large amount of people are that non-ideological that they just like. My dad used to be like a he said I would vote for like Dick Cheney in a heartbeat, and like, but also he loves Trump now, but Trump hates Bush, and there's like a little bit of a inconsistency there. Like which establishment made sense because they both hate each other. Like, and then he said like he was talking shit about Liz Cheney. I'm like I thought you loved Dick Cheney. They have the exact same ideology. He's like, oh, I would vote for Dick, but I don't trust Liz. I'm like, bro, they have the exact same politics. Literally, she's a woman. She doesn't like Trump. That's it, and that's how most Republican voters are. I'm not gonna lie. It's just vibes.
It's just vibes. Yeah.
Vibes. So, guys, I pulled up the 10th Amendment. It says the 10th Amendment says that the federal government only has the power delegated in the Constitution. If it isn't listed, it belongs to the states or to the people.
Yeah. So that should all of government be.
Exactly. So I don't understand why we keep getting into these fights and these battles with things that are given to us in the Constitution. Our rights to be who we are, to identify who we are, it's our right. And it's not for the government to tell us socially who we are, because if that's the case, we could just be under a king.
Yeah, having a constitution that's set in stone is a permanent government that never changes. You know what I mean? That is the establishment. If you're unwilling to listen to the 10th Amendment that says anything else you guys want to do, that's up to the people and it's up to the states. That's an invitation to expand on that. Expand on your protection of personal freedom and rights and stuff like that.
Right.
Otherwise, it is literally the status quo, the state. Like people, they are everything that they want to protect is everything that's wrong about government. That's what's most irritating. It's like they're like, we hate all this social spending, we hate all this healthcare stuff, but we want to really like double down on the cops. If they're brutalizing somebody, it's like whatever. And then like the police or in the military, it's like, we do have the biggest military, and that's going pretty well. So like, that's someone we can trust. Let's give them more money. You know what I mean? They just keep funneling into there because they trust these institutions. If they trusted institutions like Medicare, they would have no problem with us funding Medicare. And old people, you can see they do trust Medicare. That's why Republicans are having a little bit of an identity crisis here. Mm-hmm. It's because they don't know what they're supposed to support or not. Go ahead.
Right. Like whenever Biden on the State of the Union address mentioned the idea that like Republicans or certain Republicans have brought up, phasing out Social Security, and they booed like that was like some great evil. Whenever they've been saying that for the past few decades that they want to get rid of Social Security.
Yeah.
I think the sad part about the Constitution thing though is like we've gotten to a point now where certain constitutional rights, like our right to privacy, like our like our voting rights are dependent on who wins an election, because we have Republicans actively tearing down these constitutional supposedly rights. It's just what can you do at that point except for make sure that the good team wins? It's just so sad.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I find, and you guys know I'm an attorney, I'm finding a lot of judges now are becoming too political. Way too political. They're taking on cases that are not supposed to be taking on, like the Biden's plan, the student loan, that should never have been in the court system. They've taken cases that are very political that they should have not addressed, and if they do address it, they're taking a very one-party stance on it. Mm-hmm. And for me, that is causing the great divide, because if you look at the history of America, our Supreme Court has always been independent. It's like no matter what. I mean, people hated Chief Justice right now. Chief Justice, I think his name slips my mind right now.
Oh, John Roberts?
Yeah, Chief Justice Roberts. They hated him at the idea of him passing Obamacare. But he did it based on, even though he's a Republican appointed justice, he did it based on the law. Now, I feel like nowadays,
the only benefit of originalism.
Exactly. You know what I mean? He is a very traditional. Whatever precedent's out there, he's going to keep. But now I see the court, or it's now up. They're moving away from that, and they're moving into this progressive court, which is weird because they're conservatives. Because now they're making laws inside the Supreme Court, which they never did before. And now, go ahead.
No. Keep saying what you're saying.
Yeah, I was just saying now. So now we're getting this place where it's like, okay, everything's becoming political. So now, if a Republican wins the House, they win the Senate, they win the presidency, they have the House, they have the Supreme Court. Is everything going to now go back to 1950? Are we going to start losing affirmative action? Are we going to start losing things that helped us come together? Because that's the danger we're facing right now. And I think that as progressives, we have to let people know and show people, it's like, hey, these people are saying they're conservatives, but they're actually are progressives, but the wrong type of progressives because they're not conservatives. Like the new Republicans are not conservatives. I don't know why they keep calling themselves that. They don't believe in conservatism at all. What they really are progressives with an agenda.
They're reactionary. You know what I mean? That's the correct term. Is they're just doing the opposite of what we're doing. They're just being countercultural. And they're like usually basing it off of traditional ideas, which is all ideas that have existed prior to right now.
They're not doing that anymore.
They're not. I know, but they're using that as the scapegoat. Like, oh, tradition. Like, I don't know. Trans people weren't a big deal, 5 years ago. So let's just go back to that. You know what I mean? It's like anything that's happened before this is good enough to use as an excuse for why they should implement their reactionary politics. That's all.
Yeah, right. And then DeSantis is trying to label it as woke politics, and that's what he's calling it now. It's woke politics, and it's like, no, it's not. It's progressive politics. Like, we're not the same people that we were in 1950. It's like
that's kind of how progressivism goes. It progresses.
Yeah, like it progresses.
They're like they keep moving left. These progressives, those that want to change, and like
those damn progressives always progressing,
Yeah, right? It's like they want to change, and it's like, okay, DeSantis, I see your wife making political speeches. I don't see her at home cooking or baking. It's like it's 1950. It's like, why? So why you be consistent? If you're a conservative, be a conservative. It's like I want my wife to stay at home, and I go make the bread, and that's a conservative person.
But the conservatives have become, I'm gonna say it, more liberal over time.
Yeah,
and they don't even realize it, and they're still considering it how conservatism has always been. Like, at least half of them support gay marriage now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big deal. A lot of them support cannabis use, stuff like that. It's things that have been implemented that they realize are part of their freedom, and now they have to protect that because it's become the status quo. So it's not as much of a threatening idea. When we actually pass policies, then they are not just a figment of our imagination. That conservatives, in their imagination, are imagining the worst possible scenario because it's implemented by Democrats.
Right.
You know what I mean? So once we actually put policies into action, they can't really. I mean, they still make up fake facts. You know what I mean? But at least some of them can see it in reality, not society not falling apart when you give poor people money to pay rent and they can pay for things like, or they can even take time off to get a better job. You know what I mean? Like obvious concepts.
I don't know if I necessarily agree that 50% or more of Republicans and conservatives actually support like gay marriage. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that. I think
that's in a poll, but it's possible it's going the opposite direction.
I think there's a very real danger that we will see, things like gay marriage coming under attack by conservatives and Republicans in the next, few years. I think that's a very real possibility.
I think it's possible. I do think that like gay marriage is more set in stone. I think that they're just turned that exact same disgust, hatred that they had towards them into transphobia. Well, you know what I mean? I feel like they kind of moved on just to being transphobic and using that as the scapegoat in every situation.
It's very bad politically to go after the gay community. If Republicans know it. They know it. They know if they've come after the gay community because there are gay Republicans. Like a lot of people don't realize that there are a lot of them.
Well, I mean, just look at Texas. They have no problem kicking out the log cabin Republicans when it benefits them.
That's a couple states though. But I live in California. There's a lot of California Republicans here. You know what I mean? And they just are more concerned about taxes and stuff like that. Like they are actual like before social liberalism existed, liberals. Like that's a very like how many Americans are just independents? Like a lot of them, and they're just liberals. I'm telling you. How many independents? Some of them are like Communist Party members, but for the most part, it's the American ideology of I want to be free. I think people should have small businesses. I think that should compete. I don't really trust the government. I think taxes should be the lowest possible, but I think we should have some public health care. It's kind of like the most popular accepted position as possible, and that's what a majority of Americans are.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of progressive independents. I'm not going to lie to you. I think there are a lot of like that kind of like that kind of brand of like a person who supports things like Medicare for all, but like won't vote for Democrats because they won't do it. Things like that.
I don't know. I feel like if you're politically active, you're gonna most likely vote. I think unless you're really. Go ahead.
No, I agree with Zach. When I was in the campaign trail, I ran to a lot of independents that are like that. They actually agree with a lot of progressive ideology, but they would never vote Democrat. And it was a weird thing. I was like, well, how's that possible? Like, you're progressive. And it's like, no, I just don't trust Democrats. And it's like, but you're progressive. And progressive.
I don't know that they're necessarily progressive. I think that they just agree with some progressive ideas without realizing who those policies are even associated with. I think they're just general, like, liberal people that are like, if you say very point blankly, should we spend twice as much on our private healthcare system as as a single payer system when we get way better results and it would save all this money? Yeah, if any rational liberal that's not already ideologically destitute or whatever, they'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense, and then you could label them a progressive. But I think most people just sort of have this narrow understanding of politics of like, I want to be free, this, that, and this, that. And when they hear politicians say things that are appealing to them or whatever, they sound good, they'll go along that way. But then as soon as they won't go as far as like liking AOC because the amount of messaging there is against her, even amongst liberals. You know what I mean? They just don't. They just want to be liked. That's all. They don't want to be disliked by either side. I think that's the majority of Americans.
I think the problem, like I think I've said this like several weeks, it's like we need to move to talking more about economic issues. Yeah. We need to move away from talking about social issues. I think that's really what's the driving force in the issues that are happening.
I think real quick, I think social issues like abortion and gay marriage, stuff like that, is not something we should move away from. I think it's the cultural issues, them being like, how do you feel about Mr. Potato Head? The things that have no actionable consequences.
Okay,
you know it's the stuff that's distracting. That's just like, I feel this way about Disney implementing a gay couple, and like that's not the stuff that we need to focus on, even as like, people that are obviously in the right. It's like it is a distraction from the economic issues.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Yeah. Like I believe in individual rights. So like issues like gay marriage and trans rights. Yeah. Those are issues that are constitutionally. I just read the Constitution. They are protected.
Yeah.
And they should be enforced, and they shouldn't be oppressed. But I feel like you were saying, the culture issues, like the cancel culture, it's killing us because we talk about things that the average person doesn't want, like they don't want to talk about, and they don't want the politicians to be talking about. Like it's one thing if I talk about gay rights, that I talk about gay rights as an ally for the gay community, but I talk about it in a sense of, well, this is someone's right to choose who they decide to love.
Yeah.
You have no business deciding. We have no business as deciding as society who someone should love. I mean, they shouldn't be oppressed for that reason. So when I look at it, I look through a lens of someone's individual rights, but I don't get bogged down with the cancel culture where it's like, oh, this guy said that he hates gay people, so we should cancel him. And it's like, okay, yeah, you said that. That's what that person believes. But at the same time, we can't spend weeks upon weeks canceling someone when
Yeah,
there's children hungry, you know? And it's
Right.
like,
definitely.
so that's the issue that I'm having sometimes with our elected officials. I feel like a lot of them now are more celebrities, and I think that's what AOC is getting labeled as, more of a celebrity than they're actual politicians. Because I think that's a lot
I
of,
feel like we're moving that direction. I don't think that's a realistic assessment of the status quo. I feel like Congress is mostly like 65-year-old white men, even on the
yeah, of course.
Democratic side.
Yeah.
But I do think it's going to move towards that with the like inclusion of media and TikTok and stuff like that. The way people are actually going to be popularized. I think Trump was a catalyst for basically the catalyst for non-establishment politicians, meaning people that have started off at state assembly and work
Yeah.
for legislators, stuff like that. That's gone, or at least
Yeah.
like it's going to be dramatically mitigated by
Yeah.
populism, essentially, just because
Right.
of the expansion of media.
So I think, yeah, so I don't think that resumes are really not going to matter as much as can you, get clickbait? Can you say the most provocative thing to get people to like your videos? And that's why I feel like that's where we're moving towards. And that's moving us more and more away from economic issues. And it's like, because now we're focusing more on populism. Like this guy said some crazy stuff. Yeah, he's a smart guy. And he's like, no, he's not smart. He's just crazy. And it's like, yeah, you want to say something, Zach? I feel
Yeah,
like,
no, I definitely agree that we should focus on economic issues.
yeah,
Not saying that social issues are not important. I think they obviously are, and I personally care more about those.
yeah,
But I think that like we should approach social issues like if I were just the all-seeing messenger for the Democratic Party, I would approach it like, oh, these people are focusing on banning transgender people, like the 7 that exist in the whole state, from from sports in general, while our state, our economy is plummeting. We
yeah,
we have millions of Americans without health care, things like that. Like, why are we not going to bat for the American people? Why are you focusing on trans people? Like they're not doing
Yeah,
anything to
that's
you,
very smart.
like
exactly. It's like, look, let them live their life. Like that's their choice, what they want to do with their life. And it's
we
like,
have to
I
make
think
them look
focusing. I think what you're saying is focusing on Republicans in this
right.
issue instead of being like, just like Biden tweeting like trans women are women or something like that. Like
yeah,
that's that kind of
Make
virtue
them look
signaling
so
is kind of what's losing instead of saying like, yeah. But look at what Republicans are saying. They,
exactly.
just using what society is already like. Like most people are pretty aware that like, yeah, trans people exist and like gay people are married, stuff like that. If you just like put the camera on a regular Republican being like,
yeah,
well, God says in the Bible that these people should they're a degradation on the world and stuff like that. It's like, well, who are you really trusting to govern you?
yeah,
What Democrats have to do is make them look silly and stupid for focusing on like trans people and gas stoves while Americans are starving without health care. Like just make them
exactly.
look stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're focusing on things that's like, look, there is no question people have the right to do what they want in America. That's why I read the 10th Amendment. It's like if the government hasn't put in the Constitution that was written 200 years ago that you have a right to be involved in this, then you don't have the right. And nowhere there it says you have the right to involve on who someone is with or what they decide who they choose to identify as.
This is
That
the
is
only
not a
possible
topic.
good. Sorry, this is the only possible good consequences of Michael Knowles or somebody saying we need to eradicate transgenderism.
Exactly.
Is like you're making them put their mouth where their money where their mouth is or whatever. Like if you're talking so much shit about trans people, what are you going to do about it? You're going to get rid of them out of society? Okay,
You're
you're a
not,
fucked
yeah,
up human being. You know what I mean? Like make them say like right now they're just complaining about stuff they're uncomfortable and confused by. Which yeah, go ahead talk about how confused you are. That's fine. But like why? Why is this what you're including in politics? Because right now we're just talking about like, hey, giving them equal opportunities in society. And let's maybe not discriminate them if they're trying to get a job. And then
yeah,
they immediately take that and to go like, they want the children, every children, to be. If you're born a woman, you're gonna become a man. We want that to be in every kindergarten classroom. Every single child will be transitioned by the time they're in 8th grade. Like this is what's in their mind, and it's
It's like the
ridiculous.
Bo Burnham song, Obama sent the immigrants to vaccinate your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know people like that though. That's the thing.
it's
I work with this
crazy.
girl that's always like, oh, I have the worst headaches, and it's because of 5G. And I think I saw what are those called? The emissions in the sky. Oh,
What is it
why is
called?
that slipping my mind?
Chem lights.
Yeah,
Is it chem lights?
chemtrails. She says that all the time.
Chemtrails,
She's
yeah.
like, I saw some chemtrails and I'm having the worst headache. I'm like, why doesn't everybody in the San Francisco Valley have a headache then? Like, stop creating issues like just because you have issues. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like we come in a sense like, look, people at the end of the day, we don't. It's like this. It's like when we did 1950s, 60s, and there was racism and there was a separation between the races, right?
Yeah.
Can you literally tell a white man from Texas to understand what a black man felt in the South?
No.
You can't.
There's no experience equivalent for them.
There's no equivalent. But over time, the black man talks to the white man and says, "Hey, this is what I've been feeling, and this is what you guys. This is what I felt during slavery or during
Segregation.
racism, segregation. Thank you.
Yeah.
So these are the conversations we should still be having. It's like, look, I grew up in a society, and I'm going to age myself. I'm 35. Like, I went to high school where being gay still wasn't that popular.
Yeah.
Or being transphobe wasn't that popular when I was in high school. It's becoming, if you were gay, you didn't say anything. And that was when I was in high school, it was in 2002, 2003. There were one or two people who were actually open and it was like, I'm gay. I don't care what you say. But for the most part, most people were like, they hid it. And through over time and learning.
Don't say gay.
Yeah, right. And over time, I've learned, through having a lot of gay friends, what they, the oppression that they go through and what they feel and, things that I would have not have known in high school, And like even me, like some of my gay friends had to teach me how to talk and what was offensive and what was not offensive, and I learned. And I feel like as a society, if we're not learning from others that differ from us, then we're definitely dying.
Yeah.
Because humans are designed to learn. Like every day, I get on this chat, Zach say something, you say something, Seth. I go back, I research it. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So, we have to continue to learn. And I feel like right now, as a culture, we're becoming very lazy. We don't want to learn. We don't want to understand each other. We rather follow the algorithm that Facebook puts for us that tells us all our friends are cool and they're in this little bubble. The same thing with TikTok. TikTok does the same thing. They send you information that obviously is geared towards you, and we put our hand in the sand, and we're not trying to learn the differences, and we're not trying to evolve and become one. And I think that's what that's what I think the progressive message is. It's like, hey, to progress as a society, we have to come together as one, because that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah, I think a
Right.
lot of people are willing to learn facts that support their already preconceived notions. You know what I mean? Nobody's really willing to challenge their perspective and ideology. Like my mom lives in the same house she was raised in, and I'm like, she's the same political views, the same religious views that she was raised under. It's like, how could you ever justify your own perspective if you've never stepped outside of it once? You know what I mean? Like how could you be trusted that one other ideology is not better if you've never considered it? That's the issue with education for conservatives, is they think if you tell somebody something, that is indoctrination. They ignore the main aspect of indoctrination, which is suppressing ideas of other people's ideas. You can't indoctrinate somebody by educating them, because you're providing both sides. You're providing every side. You're educating. You're giving information. Indoctrination is hiding. It's hiding information. That is where indoctrination takes place, and that's why conservatives are constantly complaining about it, because they understand it very well. Because every single conservative has been indoctrinated at some point, because it's policies that are inherently against their interests. Unless you did specifically become a conservative because of economic, luck in your life. You know what I mean? Those people exist, the grifters. But for the most part, at least socially conservative values are installed in childhood and their childlike beliefs of the world. And that's why they still believe them, is because they believed them since they were children. They think that people that are not Americans can't be trusted. People that are closer to you or you're more likely to have a good time with or something like that. Like, it's just like, I trust people from my community, and the farther you get away from my community, the less human you are to me.
Yeah.
That's basically conservatism broken down.
Yeah. Well, someone wants to challenge our views, but we're out of time. I actually went over to an hour and 5. But X and V, we will be back next week at 8. We hope that you're there, and then we will
8 Eastern Standard Time.
Is
right?
it 8 Eastern? No.
Wait. My standard. Me and Zach, we're gonna
abolish time zones. Honestly, just get rid of them.
It's
one universal time.
No, it's an adult show. We go in at really late, guys, at 11 o'clock. Obviously, it's after dark, so I can be more. How can I say?
Well, it looks light over there where you're at.
Yeah, that's
right.
Jesse's at lunch.
Yes, I got lunch, but for the most part, I like it to have it at night because we can get more. I guess talk about more controversial things and.
Yeah, I can't think in the morning or awake.
Yeah,
I'm not even awake in the morning.
Less PC. How can I say that? We can just chit chat. And Seth,
plus Jesse's mom isn't watching then.
My mom is not watching. Hopefully,
so you can say all the naughty words.
No, at 35, I could still get a whooping. Remember, I'm a Haitian.
Yeah, she can watch the playback.
You're like find a belt somewhere. So we're gonna sign off, guys. Everybody's gonna get the last word. I appreciate Zach. I hope Zach comes on again. Like I said, I constantly learn from you guys, and this is a great avenue and a great space. So anyone to join, we try to be, as our audience grow, we will intermingle some of your thoughts into our set, and so it's very important that we get your perspective. We have dialogues. Because if we are our own community, and being our own community, we have to talk about things that affect our community. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to let Zach and Seth say their final words.
Hopefully not our final words.
No, you know what I mean.
Well, obviously not final. But I think to wrap up what we've been talking about this whole time, I think we've gone pretty far when it comes to LGBTQ plus issues, but we still have a long way to go. Like you were saying in high school, Jesse. I think I remember when I was in high school, which feels like a long time ago, but it was only about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
people were still calling each other the F slur as an insult. Gay is an insult. But I do think we do have a long way to go when it comes to normalizing, just being gay and being trans and just stuff like that. That being said, I feel like I'm doing an intro now. I'm Zach. You can find me on Twitter at Real Zach Britt. If you want to look at stuff that I'm doing, I'm in the College Democrats at my campus, College Dems, MSU. You can find us there. We do cool stuff.
He lives in Mississippi, guys.
Oh yeah, Mississippi State.
He needs all the help he can get.
Hail State, all that kind of stuff.
50th in the nation and etc.
51st, actually. 52nd if you count Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Well, don't tell Trump. That's awesome.
Oh, I guess I'm supposed to talk.
Yes, and follow Zach, by the way. Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, yeah, you got to follow Zach. And you got to follow all the accounts that I've not been pushing, but I'm going to start pushing right now. Imagine More is technically the name of the show, which we've also not mentioned very much. So hopefully we're going to become more organized, and we're going to have a YouTube channel, which will have all of our content organized for everybody to watch, and clips, stuff like that. But we're still working towards that. Just one step at a time, one day at a time here. We're definitely going to do next week, 8 p.m. Pacific time, right? Yeah. Zach, it was 10 for you, right, when you started?
10 for me. That would be 10 Central, 9 Mountain.
Central.
8 Pacific.
I think there's some mountain time zone too.
Yeah,
but we don't. If you
9.
live there, don't worry about it.
Those people don't matter.
Nobody knows what you're called or your time zone, so just don't watch.
Yeah, East Coast bias. I got the East Coast bias over here.
Yeah, East Coast. That one's at 11 p.m.
Yes.
So, but yeah, once it's all on YouTube, then you don't have to watch it live, and that'll be a lot more convenient. So, come on, Seth, get your act together and start editing.
Yeah.
With that, we will end because we've gone 10 minutes over, which is perfectly fine.
All right. See ya.
All right, you guys have a great night.
You too,
I'll
guys.
see everybody next week. If you come, Zach, you got to come.
Gotta go.
We got more people in the audience, then we can grow faster.
True.
And we need to have
It's
more
been
guests.
I enjoy the conversations. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
it was really fun.
I
feel like we barely got in the topics we are going to talk about, but
Okay, let's go live and let's continue to talk.
Yeah. All right. Everybody have a good night.
You too.
All right.
See you guys.